Hello friends, hope you are well. Welcome to another video in our series Finance and Investing Tidbits. So the subject of this video is, should one invest in growth schemes or dividend schemes of mutual funds? Welcome to this video. Various mutual fund schemes often have two options, dividend option and growth option, and also in some cases a reinvestment option. Now, of course, that reinvestment option is not as popular as the other two, dividend and growth. And in fact, in my view, that reinvestment option doesn't make much of a sense at all. Uh, but dividend and growth are good options that investors can consider. But again, out of those two, I very clearly favor one of them, and I'll give you the rationale for that. Do see whether you agree with that. Unlike shares, where we don't have any choice in terms of accepting dividend or not accepting dividend, in case of mutual funds, we have a choice. In case of dividend by companies, the dividend is declared out of profits. But in case of a mutual fund, the dividend could be declared out of the gain from shares or other instruments in which they have invested in. It is also declared out of the dividend or interest that the scheme receives, depending on the nature of the scheme, whether it's an equity scheme or a debt scheme. To the extent dividend is paid out by mutual fund scheme, the amount in the scheme naturally comes down, and the compounding advantage that we have, because the money which is invested by us in the mutual fund scheme in turn is getting invested somewhere else, and it keeps on growing and compounding, that benefit goes away. On the other hand, when the money is received by us as dividend, it gets taxed at the hands of the recipient. Suppose somebody is in a 20% tax bracket and you receive 100 rupees, 20 rupees goes away towards taxes and only 80 is available with us, and that is the amount that can be reinvested by us based on our choice, or it can be spent for meeting our domestic and other objectives. Now, if the money is going to be used for meeting some domestic expenses, or say for example our vacation, etc., that's a different thing. But if that amount were to be reinvested, we have to ensure that the investment opportunity in which we invest that money again compounds at a rate better than the rate at which this original scheme from which we received the dividend was compounding. Otherwise, what's going to happen? This money is going to lie in our savings bank account, and it's going to compound at a very, very meager rate, 3.5 or 4%. So the whole purpose of taking the dividend out is completely defeated. Now the question can arise that we are keen to receive dividend to really meet our expense needs and not for any other purpose. If that is the case, receiving dividend is not necessarily a great option. I will talk about how one can meet those domestic requirements towards the end of the video. Let's first focus on how we ensure that the money keeps on compounding at an excellent rate. So the way of achieving that is we go for a growth scheme rather than a dividend scheme. So naturally we receive no money from the mutual fund scheme towards dividend, but the money remains with the fund, with the scheme, and it keeps on getting compounded at an excellent rate. So just to pay the dividends, they don't have to pay out the dividend received by them or the interest received by them. They can reinvest it. Similarly, they don't have to sell well-performing shares to meet the dividend requirement. And naturally, through the growth scheme, the money compounds at the rate at which the scheme has been performing all these years. So the way to invest is growth scheme and not really the dividend scheme to take full advantage of compounding. So just to put in a nutshell, money compounds better in growth scheme than in dividend schemes, and we should go away from this notion that we should always receive something from the mutual fund. Rather, we should allow the NAV to grow. And I've already made available tools for you to monitor the growth in your NAV, typically when you invest through a growth scheme. So do explore that video also. I'll make that link available in the description box. So you can also use that tool which is made available along with that video for monitoring your own returns. So we must let our capital grow rather than continually taking something out of it unless it's really required. So by going for a dividend scheme, even if we don't need the money is going to get drawn from that mutual fund scheme and it's going to come and remain in our savings bank account. So instead, it is much better that we allow it to compound. Now, how about meeting our own domestic requirements, particularly for retired individuals? So I can fully understand that not all retired individuals have the benefit of a pension. So they need to meet their own expenses out of whatever savings that they have done during their active work life. Even there, what I would say is that you take the money out by selling the units based on your requirement rather than taking the money out by way of a dividend route, because through the dividend route the money will come into your bank account at a time when you may not need it. On the other hand, your needs can be spread out throughout the year. So a systematic withdrawal plan to meet your specific monthly requirements and sale of units for meeting your special requirements like vacation or any other expense in the family, you could sell those units at that time, but rest of your units can continue to grow rather than money coming into your bank account by way of dividend in a very tax inefficient way, you landing up in paying taxes on it, and then worse, the money compounding at an extremely low rate by remaining in a savings account. So we have to go to the notion of letting our capital grow rather than going for a regular dividend or interest kind of income. Remember, compounding is at the heart of investing, and we should never let our money compound at an inefficient or a low rate. I'm sure you would agree with this point of view. But of course, if you have a different point of view, feel free to comment in the comment box, and I'll welcome your comments. If you have any questions, feel free to raise those questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thank you so much.